Hello, Clay. Welcome to another season of Star Trek Voyager. Hello, everybody out there listening and watching on YouTube, as we now are wont to do. So I was a little bit surprised, Clay, I guess, to open this up that normally you feel like people come back tanned and well shorn in between seasons, unlike me, between seasons of the podcast.
Like sheep.
Like sheep would just... The Voyager crew were just clones of Dolly over and over again, except freshly shorn sheep. Do you I didn't notice anyone looked particularly different in this one. Am I just bad at noticing this kind of stuff? They all have the same haircuts, right? They looked all identical.
Yeah, I usually pick up on that stuff, and aside from the weird, they're really committing to that new haircut for Kes.
Yeah,
which I can't.
It's your going away haircut.
Yeah, I have to imagine that is probably not her real hair, right? So it's not like they just let her not wear a wig anymore. I'm sure she's wearing a different wig.
Yes, I would assume. No, yeah, it must be. I think her hair is darker than that. It's just so luxurious and curly. It has to be a wig. It just looks too pristine, I think, on her head.
Yeah, it's too perfect. Yeah, it's still one of the more strange decisions they've made because it's like not to go back to the last season, but is it?
I don't even remember her old haircut. What's her old haircut?
She's got like a short crop thing.
Oh, that's right.
Usually.
Yeah, she looks like an elf, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, until they did the episode where she Benjamin Buttons back through her life, where at the beginning she has this long hair and then she keeps the long hair, and I think it's. I'm assuming it's only because they meant it to imply that was the path they were going down, was the path toward the year of hell.
Yes, right, which is the path of hair as well. Yeah.
But I guess that means you got to commit to it.
Yeah. I mean, I remember this now. Maybe it's an actress thing. The actress just wants the short hair, but I mean, we'll call it the relegated to the credits after the episode has started haircuts, where your name is no longer listed in the main credits with the rest of the cast. Jeri Ryan is now taking your place, and you're relegated to starring.
Did they put Jeri Ryan's name in the opening credits?
Yeah, then there's no
Did
Jessica
they really
Lange
already
or whatever her name is? Yeah.
I noticed that Jessica Lange was in the also starring, but I didn't realize they put Jeri Ryan's name there immediately.
Yep. She's close to the end because I think it's only Garrett Wang that's after her in terms of last name because it goes alphabetical. So she's on there. Jeri Ryan.
Have we ever come down on why and how Kes the actress left the show?
No, my understanding of the one that I'm going to go with, just based on everyone's reading or everyone's comments on it, is it's like the show is looking to stir things up. They wanted to get rid of some cast member and replace them with an attractive female. And so the choices seem to be Garrett Wang and Jessica Lange, or however you pronounce her name. And Leanne lost for some reason. So not the choice I would have made. I would have expected, if you're going for a babe upgrade or something, like just keep both of them. Why get rid of one to bring in another one? And
Jeri, if we keep both of them, Jeri, you know what that means. We get them both in the same scene. Who knows? Who knows what could happen?
Just constant sparks flying in the background as those two are on screen together. Garrett Wang was
7 of 9. I've got a different number in mind for these two.
This is Harry Kim has a line in this one where he's like, when he gets over his sickness and he comes back and they're like Harry, he's like, it's good to be back, Commander. When he steps into like his post and he's there and I just really wanted some character to go like, to be honest, Harry, I didn't notice you were gone. Just not much of a change in terms of what's going on the ship. This is Scorpion Part 2. It is the first episode of the 4th season of Star Trek Voyager. It came out on September 3rd, 1997. I had just turned 14 years old in 2 days. This one is 2 of 2 in the Scorpion arc, written by Brendan Braga and Joe Menosky, directed by Heinrich Kolbe, in-universe date 51003.7, which is 2374. Keep that date in mind. In this one, Scorpion Part 2, Captain
Already
Janeway
gone.
forges a shaky alliance with the Borg Collective to defeat Species 8472. A lot of proper nouns in this one so far, a lot of capitalization, leading to a new potential crew member coming aboard in the season premiere of Star Trek Voyager. So, let's get this small issue out of the way. But it's a continuation of an issue we had before, I think in the Unity episode, or at least I did. This doesn't really matter. This is not very particularly important. But when the timeline here confuses me. When Janeway says, "You're a human," and she goes, "Yes, I am," she doesn't go, "How the fuck are you human?"
Yeah. I was thinking that the whole time.
Because she was assimilated 18 years ago. So that means that it's before the Battle of Wolf 359. Because that was not 18 years ago. That happened recently in Voyager history. So is the explanation that the Borg have just been petering around the edge of the Federation for 20 years and we just never knew that they were out there?
I guess. Are humans... Do you have to be from Earth to be a human?
Yes, I think so.
You
I
do?
mean, you have to have originally come from the Homo sapiens species, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea because as far as
what's your take on that? What are you suggesting could be human outside of that?
well, I guess I was just thinking like, could there just be humans on other planets that's just where they're from? Like, does 7 of 9 ever identify as being from Earth?
Yes.
Oh, all right. Well, I got nothing. That's very confusing.
I don't remember the specifics. I can't conclusively say that, but my understanding is that she is human. Like she was of Earth origin originally. And I know that they will have an episode that explains her assimilation. They do that. So I don't remember how it comes about though, or like why that's the case. And I guess we'll get there. But in terms of the episode, I would expect Janeway to say, "How is this possible?" Like how did this work this way? Because the Unity Borg were also human, right? Weren't some of them human or Romulans and stuff? Like they were all Alpha Quadrant, weren't they?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not just I just thought it was an odd thing.
I mean, because they've never made it. It's their first appearance in TNG. They're still in the Delta Quadrant, right?
Yeah. Yep. And it takes all that
I don't
time
know.
for the ship to get to Earth that one time. That ship is destroyed, so nothing comes back with that ship. Is First Contact doing something here? I don't know. Because First Contact's already out, right? That came out already. It did, I think.
Did it? Yeah, maybe.
I think
I don't know.
you're fired. Clay's fired up for season 4 of Star Trek Voyager, and we're ready to go.
Hey, I just cut my hair. You can't fire me now.
Let us know if we're wrong about that, but I found it extremely distracting that no one seems to care that 7 of 9 is a human who was assimilated 18 years ago. The only explanation I can come up with is if the First Contact Borg ship did something and that caused a timeline malfunction, although that seems to be thinking quite a bit into it. Are you Googling it?
I'm trying to find out. Just keep going.
I'll continue. This is Scorpion Part 2, where the Borg are back in town and species 8472 reveals itself to be nothing more than a... What's that phrase? When you're just a plot device? You're a MacGuffin? They're just
Oh,
the
MacGuffin.
The MacGuffin
Yes.
of our hearts.
First Contact came out in 1996, just FYI.
First Contact's 90, so this is 97, so it's a year later.
Yeah.
I thought this one was, I think the patrons are going to give us different thoughts about this one. I thought this one was a little bit worse than the first part, actually. This continues the Star Trek two-parter streak for me of the second part being worse than the first part in general. I thought this was kind of a failure of execution and a failure of, it's not a show and a franchise that's capable of doing what they think the point of this episode is. So the big takeaway is that, like, thematically, I don't think that they ever get they never satisfyingly explore, not just in this episode, but any post Best of Both Worlds episodes with the Borg, they never really convincingly explore what the difference is between the Borg collective and the individual mindset, really. So what they try to do in this one is that they have Janeway and Chakotay argue a little bit about it. But ultimately, the solution is to stop arguing and work together. And that's what wins the day. And so you end up sitting in a place that it's like, well, thematically, it's kind of tough to really get into the nuts and bolts of like how the Borg and the Federation should be different from each other, or like what would be interesting to be different about each other, or what's the weaknesses and the strengths of each of them. And it kind of falls back into like just the kind of the tropey things of the Borg saying like, you're weak because you fight all the time, and we as the Borg always have the wrong answer, but for some reason we're convinced that we have the right answer because we work together all the time. So it just ends up in
like American politics.
Basically, yeah. It's the house divided cannot stand. I just thematically, that's my big point, is that I don't think that the show and the series and the franchise is capable of really living up to this idea of the Borg being significantly different in terms of like how people work together. And just on a episode level, I thought that everything kind of lacked a little bit of gravitas to it. I don't know what I was expecting, but it just felt a little bit too like too normal or something of an episode. It didn't really feel like it had the bombast that I was looking for or that I expected from it. And the first one, at least, wasn't my favorite episode of all time, but I thought that it had like had like a little bit of like the energy that I was expecting. And this one felt a little bit lesser in most places, and especially in like the Chakotay and Janeway argument with each other. What say you?
I like the Chakotay and Janeway argument stuff. It was you're in a weird spot with that though, because it's like the last thing she says to him is, "Please make sure this alliance works," and he's like, "Okay, no."
Yeah,
and very quickly does his own thing.
Turns quickly.
Yeah, I think I found that their argument was more interesting than the resolution, because actually they're both kind of coming at it from interesting points of view, and having the resolution just be that, oh well, what if we need to work together is a little weak, because I don't really think it addresses the problems that they're bringing up. The thing that I found the most interesting was that I was surprised was paid so little attention to, was when Janeway finds out that it was the Borg who started the fight, and she's less like, we're too deep now. We got to help. We got to commit genocide over here anyway. We're in too deep to back out now.
Yeah.
Because that it's an interesting.
Do the Borg specifically? I was wondering. Did the Borg specifically say that Species 8472 started the conflict with them in the first episode? Because I was underwhelmed by that. Just saying like, of course the Borg started this like thing. Like it doesn't seem shocking to me in the way that Chakotay is like, Janeway, they told me they started it, and I was like, well, this feels like a weird thing to hinge your comeback on.
I think it's just that they're so aggressive. They don't feel like people who were attacked first, you know? Because when the way that you're introduced to them are as a species that is making the Borg run away. And they don't really have a lot of time to they never talk to them long enough to find out what went on.
Yeah.
The diplomacy is not in anybody's mind, apparently, in the first half of this.
Yeah.
And so when you get into the thing about the Borg being I think it's interesting from a Federation standpoint, because now they're in a really tricky position in getting involved in a war that, they're already siding with their greatest enemy, and now they realize they're doing it against someone who was attacked first.
Yeah.
Unwarranted. That's pretty tough.
But it's also evil enough where you could kill them and not feel bad about it. Because even when they go into their Species 842 continues their line of like, we're going to wipe you out because you fucking suck. That's the extent of their development. It's not a. I was thinking, in like maybe if you were going to have this idea that the Borg attacked them first, I kind of end up in this mind frame where I'm like, oh, after you learn about that, Voyager will actually start communicating with 8472 and like develop them. Like it's all kind of like, this is all like not a misunderstanding, but it adds like complexity to it. But the only communication is when they go into the water world with them and they communicate via Kess. It's just 8472 saying, you guys are inferior to us and we're going to kill you because that's what we do. So it's like it actually struck me as funny. It's because it reminds me of Aliens, right? Like the Doctor in this, or the Borg in this one, are like 8472 is the pinnacle of a biological organism. I'm like, how come in all sci-fi movies and TV shows the pinnacle of a biological organism means that it kills things very effectively? There's no like it fights off like the common cold effectively. It's just it murders people quite well. Is the pinnacle of all evolution. I don't know. I just thought
that's
it
what
was,
they're looking for. It's in Aliens. It's a. They're looking to use it as a weapon.
Aliens, it makes sense, but here it's just I guess the Borg want to kill people too, so that's why they want to have that thing. But I think it's. I was just saying, I think it's tough. They end up in this weird position that's tough to write out of though, because like you've got the Federation backing the Borg, finding out that the Borg were the initial aggressors, and in order to make anything that the Federation does in the rest of the episode look less than a war crime, you have to present what the hell, like the Scorpions. You have to present the Scorpions 8472. Is that what you mean?
Sure. Yeah. 8472. You have to present them as still aggressive enough that they have no choice but to continue with their plan, which is. I don't know. It feels a little bit skirting the issue from a Star Trek standpoint, but I don't really know what else you do. So,
yeah, I guess it comes into the MacGuffin aspect of them. Like I preferred 8472 in the first episode, I think, than this one. This one, they just feel like they are a threat to things, which is cool in some sense. Actually, my favorite moment in the episode is. I did like the Borg cube sacrifices itself to save Voyager. I was like,
that was cool. I was like,
this is kind of fun. This is a neat thing. But it still just highlights that 8472 is just a dangerous threat with nothing. It's just they're going to kill you. That's all that they are there to do. But I was surprised that we didn't get to discuss anything with them going forward.
Yeah, they didn't even try to talk to them, really. No.
Just Kess has those weird, like, telepathic not flashbacks, but she like sees them in. I don't even know what that is because they're not in the room with her. They're in like another universe. Is that supposed to be that they're overlapping? I'm not exactly sure what's going on there.
I think they're just talking. They're just.
She can just see them
telepathically talking to them. Yeah.
Okay. The
visions.
I mean, I guess that we can come back to the Janeway and Chakotay argument. To me, like it's sort of the crux of the episode, and in a lot of ways it reminds me of Best of Both Worlds, because the Best of Both Worlds thing is actually probably the weakest part of Best of Both Worlds, in my opinion, is that Best of Both Worlds is set up where Picard is incapacitated, right, and Riker takes over, and the point that they say explicitly in the episode is that Picard wrote the book on this, so I, as Riker, have to throw out the book, and I have to do something wild. And then he does basically what I would expect Picard would have done in the exact same situation, and he goes and rescues Picard, and that's it. I guess the episode might have something to say about, like, Picard would never risk the entire ship for one person or something, and so Riker ignores that. But this one's kind of the... this one's the same to that in that the captain is incapacitated. I just thought that I wasn't really crazy about the Chakotay and Janeway disagreement, really. Like, I thought that it didn't have enough time to do anything. It didn't have enough... I didn't even really think that both characters kind of felt a little wobbly in what they thought they should do for not particularly great reasons either. Like, I don't agree with Janeway's decision where it's like, yeah, we just work with the Borg. That'll go well. It's like, well, that doesn't seem right. And Chakotay's thing is like, they told me to go backwards. I said, fuck yourself. That's why I kept going forwards. But also his idea to just dump the Borg and run feels like it's not thought out particularly well either. He's like, we'll give them the idea, we'll give them the weapon, and then we'll just get the hell out of here. And it's like, well, that seems like a bad idea too, Chakotay. So I don't know. I thought that if that argument is going to be the central thing of your episode, I think it has to be a little bit more interesting than where they ended up with it. And I don't know where else to go with it outside of saying that.
Yeah, I think Chakotay's plan is not particularly good.
Yeah.
It's dumping them off on a random planet. It's just not particularly well thought out. I think Janeway being like, if it were me, I would have flown back 4 days in the other direction is a little bit weird. Like, I don't know if that's necessarily true.
Yeah.
Or the thing that they should have done. Yeah, I don't know.
It's not a, I feel that the best of both worlds thing, even though that is the weakest aspect, I feel like that's a more believable difficulty for Riker, I think. Here, it's like, and also Janeway kind of went under. You know how like when the presidents always have their colonoscopy and the vice president is president for like 4 hours while they're under. This felt kind of like that. It's like she took a nap and he took over for an hour and was like, I'm going to do what I want now. And
yeah,
it just, to me, it just felt like it lacked gravitas. There's no like crew argument about this. It's just a mild disagreement about what the best thing to. It's not mild. That's kind of being like kind of wishy-washy, but it's like it felt like a minor squabble between a first officer and a captain in a way that I think they wanted this to be a real important decision that Chakotay was making.
Yeah. I think the fact that he jettisons everything so quickly makes it feel like it has less gravitas to it, because he's got the scene where he goes in and he talks to her while she's asleep or knocked out or whatever, and he's like, I'm sorry that I have to do this or whatever.
Yeah.
But like it doesn't really weigh on him too much that he's not following her orders, you know?
Doesn't have a
like
single scene where he's alone thinking about it. That's always a classic trope. You always have the character just sitting, looking out the window, thinking about what he has to do.
I think also part of that might be that the actual stakes of the moment are a little unclear. Because like, I don't know, if I'm Chakotay and 7 of 9 tells me that the other Borg are being blown up by the 789 people, I'd be like, oh, that's a shame. I guess we should probably just keep going forward because there's nothing stopping us from getting through Borg space now.
There's nothing back there that was worth going back to. Yeah, let's keep moving on.
Yeah, like you don't even have to. I mean, if you want to jettison the Borg, I guess you could. I guess the reason you would need to
get rid of them. Sorry, everyone's suffering through colds, including Clay, including myself.
I think the reason that you would need to go back is because the Borg who are like the reason you would need to jettison them is because I guess the Borg who are on your ship could theoretically take over the ship.
Yep. That's my understanding of why you just get rid of them. Yeah, but they start doing a thing where like they're 7 of 9 is kind of like a little bit removed from the link or whatever. Seems like they just need to go out of Wi-Fi range and you're fine. You mean once she goes into like the tunnel to set up the deflector thing and Chakotay shoots the rest of the Borg into space? Or do you mean just being like, I guess that's a good segue into 7, right? So 7 obviously makes her introduction here. And I think that my problem with 7 that's established in this episode, or like the setup for it, is that it feels a lot like Voyager aping Best of Both Worlds for no particularly good reason. And it's like So, like, the logic of why she's introduced it in the first place is very confusing to me because Jane was like, Borg, me and Tuvok here have this idea. Let me slowly explain it to you through verbal language. The Borg go, this is too fucking slow. We're going to hook you into the net and you're going to tell us about it. She's like, no, I refuse. Let us talk to one Borg. And they go, okay. And there's no, the reason in Best of Both Worlds, it seemed like Locutus's whole point was that you were talking to one person. Like, it seemed like the reason that he was used was that, like, you're used to talking to one person. Here's one spokesperson for us. So it's like a single Borg that you can talk to. But the Borg in this one say, we want to speed up our communication. And Janeway says, okay, let's do that by talking to one Borg who will then relay the information back to the hive. It's a small, minor thing, but it feels like it's the show aping TNG in a way that doesn't make a particularly lot of sense for the way that Voyager is trying to set itself up in this episode, introducing a character this way.
Yeah, I think also it is just funny the way that it. Also, hopefully my mute button is working because I'm coughing my fucking lungs out.
I haven't heard a single cough.
Okay, good. Let us know in the comments if you want to hear my coughs.
It's a Patreon exclusive.
I think what's funny about it too, this is just a stupid thing, but Picard becomes Locutus, who's basically like the one who was given voice to, is in his name.
Yeah.
And with 7 of 9, it's like literally they gave you a middle manager.
Yeah. She's the what is she? The Archbishop of the Unimatrix Zero or whatever her full title is.
Yeah, it's kind of a sweaty way to get a singular Borg to be the focal point and to bring on as a kid. I was surprised that there wasn't more for the way that it ends with 7 of 9 being like, or I should say with Janeway being like, maybe she was human once. Maybe we can make her human again, whatever.
Yeah. Her colors come back.
I was surprised there wasn't more involved with that because, like, obviously it's the Borg, so there's a different rules applied, I guess. But, like, you're still abducting somebody and ostensibly forcing them to deprogram from the thing, which... Like, I guess it's a little weird to me just because if it was like someone they recognized or something that would make more sense, but they just are grabbing a random Borg and being like, maybe if we disconnect this Borg, we can turn them back into a human and they will thank us for it.
Yeah.
We
have friendship. We have the Care Bear's power of friendship will just hit them right in the face and there'll be nothing none the wiser. I mean, I guess
it's like how would maybe this is a bad example, but like if you were to randomly grab a Scientologist and like abscond with that Scientologist and try to deprogram that Scientologist, would you feel great about that? Or would there be a part of you to be like, they might not love that we did this because we just kind of forced it on them. Yeah.
And
I'm not saying that Scientology is
the Borg
something to aspire. No. I'm not saying it's something to aspire to either. But it's just like, I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is what they did feels like a move that you do to someone who either wants it or is a character that you know, and not just a random person you grab off the street. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, so to correct that situation, I guess what you could do in this one is that it would kind of tie into like how I think that it probably maybe might have been wiser to portray 7 is that I know it's a TV show and they can't really do this, but I'm not crazy about the 7 acts as Locutus function. I just don't find that to make a lot of sense when the Borg are literally communicating with Janeway the same way that 7 does. There's no difference. It's either you're talking through one Borg body or you're hearing the multitude of voices of the Borg all say the same thing at the same time. And so I in a more arty, less television-y, Star Trek-y, franchise-y way, there seems like there could have just been a thing of like Seven is just a random Borg in the background until she's the only Borg left on Voyager. You know, when they all get sucked out.
Too. I kind of thought that's what they were going to do. Yeah.
And at that point, I think that her speaking in an individual voice, once the link is broken, then I'm like, okay, now she starts talking like this. Like, this actually kind of makes sense, and she gets her color back and stuff like that. And that fixes your problem in that it's still kind of an accident that she's left on the ship. Like, they try to kill her with all the other Borg, but she's just the only one that's left, and she was hanging onto the pole or whatever, the hardest, and didn't get sucked out. That probably would have fixed both of the problems, and I think it would have massaged both of the issues that we had, me with the sort of her speaking as the voice and you with her, like, is this the right thing to do to her?
Yeah, it feels more like, almost like once they solve their problem and they get out of there, that's when they realize there's still a Borg on the ship. You know, like she's been incapacitated or something.
Right.
And after they've gotten out of there, obviously it's tough to do because they do something actively to sever her link with the collective.
Yeah.
So you need to come up with some other bullshit reason to do that.
Yeah, just work around that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably an easy fix. You know, like when she sets off that laser that cuts a hole in space-time, it actually severs her link to the thing or whatever. You know, it's easy as that. But, you know, once they get out of there, they realize, oh, shit, there's a Borg left here, no longer linked to the collective. And then it's like, you know, instead of forcibly removing someone, it's more like they found a feral cat that they have to nurse back to health, you know?
That's also, I think, to rewrite the episode, that's when the doctor scans her and learns that she's human. And there's no no ability to respond from her. Like, it's kind of like a little cliffhanger or something at that point.
Yeah.
But what'd you think of Seven outside? Oh, sorry. You can say whatever you want.
No, I was just going to say my biggest issue with the whole thing was when they half plugged Chakotay into everything and he like talks her down. That was pretty silly. I think that was. I didn't like that stuff.
He's been a Borg before. He knows what it's like. He's out there.
When did that happen? I completely forgot about
Unity. That's the first Borg episode.
Oh, right.
He connects himself to them. He has that montage of like Borg communication, which is just a montage of like seeing yourself with loved ones or whatever all the time.
Yep. That's right.
What'd you think of Seven in her first appearance?
I thought she was. This is a stupid detail. I was really glad that they didn't put her in heels. I noticed that she was walking in flat shoes. Yes. And because it's like, it's such a stupid thing that they would do now where it's like they would put her in like, you know, wedge heels or something.
Yeah.
Like why does Wonder Woman have heels on?
Yep.
Unnecessary. Horrible to fight in.
Hurts that much more when you get kicked with a dagger of a heel. No, she doesn't have heels. She's also kind of covered up. She's not in a cat suit yet. She's wearing her full Borg.
She's got they spent more money on her suit than they spent on Locutus, I can tell you that much.
Yeah, it's a better looking costume. What'd you think of her acting as a Borg?
I don't know. I'm on the fence because I think you're in this really tough position when you're playing a Borg, kind of like when you're playing a Vulcan, where it's like, where do you draw the line on emoting? And I felt like she was acting a little too normal.
Yeah. I think Patrick Stewart does an underrated performance as a Borg, as Locutus. Yeah.
Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's you have to be robot-like, but also, you know, you got to carry some of these scenes. So where do you draw the line on what you decide to do? But yeah, she felt a little too human for me.
There is I don't know if you remember when this started. If First Contact was a year before this, and this is the year after, and we've only had one or two Borg Voyager episodes since then, there's definitely been a shift. And I don't remember the First Contact Borg being this way. You can remind me if they're not. There's a shift where the Borg go from ruthlessly cold-hearted and unemotional to kind of being bigots in a way. Like they're condescending towards, you know, like they start off as a we like very mechanical. We will assimilate you. We will take you and add you to ourselves, and that's what we do. But I think it's during the Voyager Borg, and Seven epitomizes this, is that we think you are beneath us in a way. Like, we are Borg. We have better ideas than you do. But it doesn't work because the Borg's ethos itself is that we are not yet perfect, but by bringing you in, we improve ourselves. So you must have something to offer. Otherwise, why are we assimilating you? And I think Freddie DeBoer, I think that's his name. He's the the Marxist writer on Substack. He wrote a thing about the Marvel movie, that new Marvel movie, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. I only read the first little bit, so I can't really summarize it. But he brought up something that I think applies to Seven. He's just saying, I'm really tired of this new modern trend of like the powerful, independent woman is just kind of like a sassy, like condescending, cut you down to size type character. Like there's the, because what's the, what is it, Miss Marvel in that movie? Is that the character?
Well, there's three of them. There's Captain Marvel, there's Ms. Marvel, and then there's as yet unnamed third Marvel. But I assume he's talking about Brie Larson's character.
Brie Larson's character. And I haven't seen that movie. I don't know enough, but it strikes me as somewhat accurate that that's like the default position when you go for like a stronger female character is to have them sort of be like snarky, I guess would be the best way to describe it. And Seven represents this snarkiness, I think. And I also don't think that I preferred the Borg when they were just like this robotic thing instead of just kind of being antagonistically superior to you, like annoyingly having a complex about it almost.
Yeah. I, without getting into it, would say that is an unfair take on the Marvels, but that's a completely different conversation. Sure. Yes, probably on the first movie, but I don't think that's the case with the new one.
Okay. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, but I think that's, I don't know. I don't know if that's, I don't really know if they would have Seven play any differently regardless of whether or not she was a man or a woman. It's tough to say, obviously. I think it's less. I think it's just more that you're in a weird position playing one of those characters as to how do you choose to play a species like that is so far removed from humanity while still also being engaging to watch in some form, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think you get
around
around
there better takes on it? Probably.
I think you get around it by not having them be so snarky immediately. Like, I can understand this becoming Seven's characterization, but to start that way, because the Borg voiceover is not that way. So what the episode seems to be saying is that this is innate to Seven's character. Seven is the one who speaks this way and has like sort of a superiority complex over everybody. So I'd be okay with that if that's a post-Sever concept. I just think that she, like, the early representation of her makes more sense if she acts more like Locutus did, which is just like, I just speak, but I don't really have any opinions of my own about anything, you know?
Yeah. I think I don't disagree, and I think that is the better way to play it. But I think it just comes down to an acting choice, honestly. I mean, I don't know how much of it is right, because I mean, if you look at those lines, I don't have them in front of me, obviously, but I feel like if you look at them on the page, they might not read as snarky as it seems.
No, that I would agree with that. I think that I would actually say that Ryan's performance makes the script, the dialogue, seem a little bit worse than it actually is if you were writing it as a Borg voice. I think like she just adds a little bit of like it's just like a little bit of stink to it in a way, like because there's some line in particular I think that like just the way that she says "we are Borg," I think written just straight ahead as "we are Borg" captures what I think she's trying to say better than her "we are Borg" or like "we are Borg" or whatever. It's like this. It's just the excessive stress on it. I don't know. I just think that she's going to settle into the role potentially, but here it just seems like it's like I'm not sure if I'm crazy about this yet.
Yeah, I think she's trying to, at the very least, trying to do something memorable, you know, because if the new cast member on the show, I'm sure she's trying to figure out what the way to go is to make it engaging or whatnot, you know.
Yeah.
Especially given the position, like if they did what we were talking about and just had 7 of 9 be like 7 of 9 Borg on Voyager, and she just happens to be the one who comes out at the end, that's different. But they are pushing her to the front specifically, and so it makes sense, especially if this is a person who's going to be sticking around, that they would, you know, put a little bit more zip on it. Yeah,
a little bit more oomph. I don't know. I mean, it's in some ways it's just kind of complaining about the way that the Borg eventually go, but they were clearly a concept that did not have a lot of wiggle room with them before you start going like, I don't know if this is the right thing to do with these guys.
I think it's so funny that, like, and I think this is the right choice in this instance, but to go from the Borg, who are all so flat and cold, to when the Borg Queen shows up and she's just like over the top and like sensual and stuff. It's like, I feel like that makes perfect sense to do that in that situation, because like that character is not interesting if it's just another Borg, you know?
Yeah. Although to Freddie's point, she's another condescending, snarky female character that the Borg, like that's.
Well, yeah, but she's the Borg Queen.
I know.
Of course she's going to be.
It's not, his point's not incorrect, right? It's not wrong. Yeah, I think it's why. I guess the question is, why does that become the default for individual Borg to break out of that way? Like it's because, and I guess they touch on it in this one. Like you do have something unique with 7, which is that she was, they say, assimilated when she was a child, and it's been 18 years, and the Borg are the only thing that she knows. I think there is room there to wiggle around with what she thinks about things. And obviously I think that the show will get into this as it moves along. Like they have to do 7. 7 has to be different somehow. It can't just be Picard breaks free of Locutus and is sad about it. I just say I think I'll just probably never be happy. And I don't even know if there is a good way to write this, to write what it means to break away from the Borg hive mind, and where that leaves you as a person. Really, it's a difficult concept to understand, and it's probably an extremely difficult one to write in a way that feels like it's a natural development for that thing.
Yeah, I can only assume it's similar to when you decide you have to stop eating the Oreos, or otherwise you'll eat the entire box, and that's just depressing for
unacceptable.
Everybody. Yeah.
Anything else about Scorpion Part 2? I'm getting an internet latency warning here, so apologies if I drop out.
Kes has the worst scream I've ever heard.
When she sees
that
the
first
alien?
scene. Yeah, I don't know if they forgot to go in and overdub a better scream or something, but it was just like, ah! It was really bad.
I mean, she's been fired, Clay. You think she's putting her she's putting her best foot forward here? It's an awkward. I thought she did pretty well for someone who knew that they were not going to be on the show anymore after this.
Yeah,
you know, that was fine.
It's crazy. It's still just crazy to me still that like this is the character you are cutting when Neelix is there and literally is not in the episode at all.
Oh, he's in it. He doesn't say anything. He's in that conference room scene.
He's there, like, you know, he exists, but he doesn't do anything.
He exists. Who you would have cut Neelix? He would have been your go-to.
Yeah, absolutely. He's useless.
Yeah,
especially as they get out of space he's familiar with.
Long time ago. Yeah, I probably. Well, there's a few that you could cut. Like I actually see nothing wrong with getting rid of Harry Kim either. I don't think Harry Kim accomplishes much, but Neelix has personality in contrast to poor Harry. But it's just kind of an annoying personality.
I think it's they don't give. I mean, you can argue about whether or not Garrett Wang has personality as an actor, but they don't really give Harry Kim a lot to do. Like you could, because I think keeping Neelix around makes sense because he's a different texture on the show, because he is a much lighter character for the most part and allows you to tell different kinds of stories. Well, like you're telling me you can't do that you couldn't just shift that to Harry or Paris? I mean, Paris fucks around as much as Neelix does. You couldn't shift that to him? I think, if anything, give Paris more to do.
Yeah, I think Kim is just supposed to be set up as the audience avatar. He's supposed to be like the everyman character. It's just that he's not very.
And when the ratings drop below a certain bar, they get rid of Harry Kim because clearly nobody's watching anymore, so they don't need that.
Yep. But he's still here. He got voted super sexy on TV Guide, and he remains. All right, well, anything else about Scorpion that you want to bring up?
Nothing I can think of.
All right, then we'll go to Patreon thoughts. Thanks, everybody, for listening. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go to patreon.com/thepensky file and leave your thoughts about upcoming episodes, and we will read them on the podcast here. I went into auto mode there, and I might have said a whole bunch of nonsense. Patreon is where you support the show. You can leave comments on upcoming episodes, and we read them. You can also get access to a whole bunch of podcasts that are out there. There's like 200 of those things that you can listen to, all by becoming a subscriber at patreon.com/thepensky file. So now, Clay, we're going to go to our Discord, and I am going to send you the messages from some of these people. I'll read the first one, I guess. Let me know if if you're coughing too much. I can try to read as many as I can.
Sure.
This is Kyle Barrett. He says, Scorpion Part 2, a good action episode that's not quite as strong as Part 1, but still solid, largely due to Chakotay's continued characterization. I like seeing him and Janeway at odds, but Seven's discussion of Borg versus Starfleet ideas of unity would have meant more if the crew and their interactions were messy and standoffish in every episode, not just this two-parter. It's neat that the plan at the end is a mixture of Chakotay and Janeway's ideas, resting on the perennium between the two, with Chakotay's Scorpion double-cross, but Janeway's more emotive and understanding desire to connect to Seven's humanity. I like Seven, but she's just a drone at this stage, and I would have liked some voice modulation, at least until the cube is destroyed. She's introduced to breathe new life into a stagnant show, like an estrogen air freshener, and it'll actually work because she's a great character, and yet, to quote David Brent, people say she's just a big pair of tits. 4 out of 5.
Estrogen air freshener.
Bob J. Kester says, Scorpion Part 2, the episode gets the big stuff right, so it's easy to overlook the little stuff. I love how when Janeway broadcasts from the cube, everyone instantly switches to don't do what Janeway says unless Chakotay confirms mode. On a lighter note, Torres telling Kim he's still got a bit of a tendril in his nose is a perfect bit of character. Tuvok, the literary critic, would approve. In sum, 5 out of 5, peak Voyager.
Wow.
Tax Bear says, Scorpion Part 2, a fairly solid action-heavy episode. It's interesting to see a power that can challenge the Borg in straight combat. Chakotay is at odds with Janeway for once, and 7 of 9, I assume he means one of the best Star Trek characters ever, is introduced, even if she isn't really that character yet. Also, this is the basis for Star Trek Armada 2, a video game Wes will never play. That's correct. Changeling says, I bought Star Trek Resurrection. I have not gotten, or Resurgence, not Resurrection, Star Trek Resurgence, but I played about 5 minutes of it. I thought about streaming it, but the 5 minutes I played didn't grab me. Changeling says, Scorpion Part 2. I don't know, but watching this episode so far removed from the previous one makes it difficult to follow or to care about what's going on. I couldn't imagine waiting 3 months for a new season to air. I do not know how you old-timers did it. Are things that different now? Really? Not really, right? You still have breaks between seasons of television.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know how many shows end on cliffhangers like this now.
Yeah, I haven't watched a lot recently, but I guess because there's so many miniseries now that focus on that, but don't Netflix shows typically end on a little bit of a cliffhanger to get you going? I'm not sure.
I don't remember.
Most of the new series I've watched have been sort of designed as single season standalone stuff, so they don't do that anymore.
Honestly, it might be a little harder now with new shows because I feel like that for a lot of them, the space between them, especially for streaming shows, tends to be a lot bigger. Like they just finished up season 2 of Loki, and I guess the first season of Loki kind of ended on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And that was like 2 years ago.
Just so much more. Yeah, so much more stuff. So maybe I disagree with this comment. You're waiting just as long as I think we did. That being said, I like this one and I love how casually rude 7 of 9 is, just pushing people out of the way of the console and that constant "I'm tired of your shit" tone she uses whenever she speaks. You could just replace every line with "fuck you" and it would work. 5 dimensions filled with that green slime that used to come with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles toys. Out of 5.
Oh yeah, remember when they used to give you slime with toys?
Gak.
All the Ghostbusters toys came with pink slime.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell it was made out of. It couldn't have been good
Remember,
for you, whatever it is. It always
remember
hardened
Floam?
into plastic.
Do you remember Floam? Floam was pretty fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Floam was just liquefied styrofoam. And it was little balls.
Yeah,
it was
had
like styrofoam.
little balls in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you could make shapes and stuff.
There was a time where just little balls of things was. Remember that Orbitz drink? It was just a drink with like those floating gelatinous balls.
Yep. I remember the advent of Dippin' Dots as well.
Yeah, Dippin' Dots.
Which, I don't know if I've ever had Dippin' Dots.
I've had it. It's pretty good. I would recommend people eat Dippin' Dots. Yeah, it's good.
It always seemed like a waste to me. Like
Yeah.
if you have to choose between Dippin' Dots and ice cream, I'm probably going to go with ice cream.
Yeah, all things equal, yes. But if you're at Six Flags and the only thing you got is a Dippin' Dots, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of a Dippin' Dots.
That's fair.
What did Six Flags combine with? Six Flags combined with some other theme park. What's the other big theme park?
Oh, recently?
Yeah, they merged.
There's something in Ohio, I think, that they merged with.
I guess they'll just cross-brand. Because the nearest Six Flags to us, I think, is Springfield. Does that still exist? The Springfield Six Flags?
Ooh,
Is that still
I think so.
Yeah. Thank you, Changeling.
I know that place used to be Riverside.
The Six Flags did. Yeah.
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 Oh, I think is it Springfield? For some reason, I thought it was like Worcester. No, I think
We
you're
had
right.
Whalen Park.
It's further out.
Whalen Park was in like Ludburg or something. It was some northern central Mass town. You'd have a whale of a time.
Six Flags New England is in
Agawam.
Yeah,
that's Springfield. It's the same thing.
Yeah, there you go, Springfield. Yep.
Jaron Hatch says Scorpion Part 2, much like its cousin The Best of Both Worlds, the build-up is a bit stronger than the climax. The action is fun, but it feels a tad disjointed. The conflict between Chakotay and Janeway is great, but I really wish it got more focus and attention than it does. The resolution also feels convenient and rushed, as little Voyager single-handedly defeats 2 impossibly powerful super races. 7 of 9, however, makes a strong impression and makes up for a lot of shortcomings in an otherwise entertaining episode. 4 magic nanoprobe torpedoes that instantly nerf the new big bad replacement. Out of 5.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's like that weapon they come up with is too good, I think.
It's super effective. Yep. Oh, and I don't think Voyager continues looking like it's Borgified. I don't think that's something that they maintain through this, although it's kind of a neat touch.
They don't keep all their extra Borg parts that boost their speed or whatever.
Maybe they do, but the Voyager model or the CGI model at the end of this looks like it has Borg parts stuck to it. Like it's like has that green glow to it. And yeah, I don't think it continues that. Jonas said Scorpion Part 2. Scorpion Part 2. Just to make sure that my Control F found it. I found both of them. This episode is superior to Part 1, mostly because it's less about a bigger, scarier monster than the Borg, which no rational viewer finds convincing, and more about the well-acted tension between Chakotay and Janeway. Janeway's order to Chakotay from her sickbed was some of Kate Mulgrew's best acting. 5 welcome absences of Neelix. Out of 5.
How do you feel about in video games when you get to add shit to your gear? So it always bugs me when I'm playing a game based off of something like Batman or Ghostbusters or even like Mad Max.
Yep.
Where it's like you can upgrade your gear and your outfit and stuff to be more efficient or whatever it is. And it always makes it look less like the thing from the movie.
Yeah.
Like I want to have a proton pack. That one that in the Ghostbusters game, you actually have the option to use the upgrades but keep the original look, which is nice.
Yeah.
But like I don't want all this extra shit on my bat suit. I just want blue and gray and a yellow belt and kick some ass.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's also because I played Red Dead 2 fairly recently, and
I just started that finally.
And a lot of that is like there's a hunting mini game, like side questy type thing. It's like an activity you can do throughout the game, and once you kill all the different animals and you get like their pelts, you can turn them into outfits for yourself. And I love the concept of that. The problem is the outfits don't do anything for you, and most of them are semi-comical looking. So it's like it's just like, you know, you have these things of like this very serious story, and you're wearing like a skunk hat, and it's just like a skunk face like sitting on your head, and as the character's looking and stuff, and it's like, well, I don't know if this is. I understand what you were trying to do, and this is a fun game, but I wish this was done a little bit better.
I like it in like the games like Spider-Man, where Spider-Man, by the nature of his character, has gone through so many costumes that you get to kind of have some fun with the things you can open.
Yep.
But
because all costumes exist already. You're not making something
right.
up. It's just you're copying what was there.
Yeah.
I like the Spider-Man. I don't know if it's a game design. I don't think I've seen it. The Spider-Man in the game is kind of neat. I like he has like white outline around the spider. So like there's
I hate that.
You don't like that? I like that. I think
it
adds like a little bit of I don't know what it does. It like sort of breaks up the colors or something kind of interesting.
The traditional Spider-Man costume is a perfect design. Adding white to it only makes it worse.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're doing a whole new costume, well, that's different.
Yeah. Malo Perverso. Scorpion Part 2. I believe I speak for everyone when I say that 7 of 9 was a great addition to the Voyager crew. Is written like a Donald Trump tweet. And a much needed, because everything's capitalized, and a much needed breath of fresh air to the series. Fuck Cass. Also, what are you guys' hypothetical thoughts on Captain Janeway dying and Chakotay becoming captain permanently for the rest of the series? Dare I say that it would have been an improvement? Thinking emoji. Also, did not feel like you all not feel to y'all like Janeway. Oh, my brain is melting. Could have seriously died in this episode, like in that parable that they were pushing at the fox frog stung by the double-crossing black scorpion. 5 out of 5 consensual assimilations. Should Janeway have died?
Was there a question in that?
I think he's asking if Janeway should have died permanently. Much like the Scorpion.
I don't think she should have, but I was thinking about it. Specifically, I was thinking about Voyager as. I feel like if they had done Voyager now, what would have been interesting about it is I bet you would have some more leeway to treat it like, say, The Walking Dead or something, where it's what they're doing is such a long trip that you have this wiggle room to be like, not everybody's going to make it.
Yeah.
Sometimes even the captain might die and then have to be. So the crew that you end up with might be very different than the crew you start with. Taking some people getting on, some people getting off, dying, whatever. I don't know if that would improve the show. It probably wouldn't, but it's just interesting to think about a Star Trek show that does that.
I could see a modern version of Voyager pulling something similar to a Michael Burnham, which is that Janeway is the first officer when they get lost and the captain dies in the first episode. It's like then you have to take over. I don't know why my Control F does that. Artorius says, Scorpion Part 2, the new season starts off with a 7-fold upgrade over the previous one. Goodbye, Kess. You won't be missed. It was a nice direction to have Chakotay deviate. There was a nice direction to have Chakotay deviate from his captain and go a different route once he took command. And geez, those weapons are effective, especially the Borg-wide dispersal one. But it begs the question, why would the Borg be so opposed to them being dropped off on a planet with all the research and the weapons? Is a good point that I was trying to say, and I just never said it so simply. It was like, why would you give them the thing and drop them off? You would think it would be easier for them to assimilate it and adapt the tech to faster create munitions in this war than having Voyager do all the heavy lifting, not to mention eliminating the potential single point of failure. 4 7s out of 5. It's a good point. I agree with that. Patrick Seba says, assimilate Harry, it's not a bad choice for Voyager's general morale, but not Captain J, and let Tuvok slay, as they both are plot integral. When left all alone, Rick B felt his bone, wanted the crew roster to fill. So Seven's on board that outfit, oh Lord, but Kim lives, who shall we kill? 5 minutes for Chakotay to drop down the list of Star Trek vessel commanders out of 5. And our final comment, it looks like, only a few for this one. Jonathan J.K. Morris says, Scorpion Part 2, I like the encouraging music they use one time. It's a change from the usual flatness from the TV show. I liked the conflict between Chakotay and Janeway as well, something the show never really let us have enough of. Thanks, patrons, for leaving your thoughts at patreon.com/the Pensky File. We are here. Oops. Up at the top now. You can join the Patreon, patreon.com/the Pensky File. Leave your thoughts, and we'll read them. Right now we're going, people can leave thoughts about The Gift, Day of Honor, Nemesis, Revulsion, and The Raven. And we'll get to those all in short time. I'm going to say the patrons gave this a 4 out of 5 as an average, maybe like a 3.7 or something like that, but it's close to a 4. What say you, Clay, on a scale of 1 to 5? What are you going to give this one, Scorpion Part 2?
What did I give Scorpion Part 1?
A 4.
I'm going to say, yeah, I'd say it's about the same. I think I'm going to give it a 4.
Okay, sounds good. I'm going to give it a 3. I think I liked it a little bit less, and I thought it was just like a solid episode of the show, really. Just it kind of functioned as it needed to. Did everything without being sort of interesting about it. Like it just kind of competently marched through the material. So I'm going to give it a 3. I thought it was fine. I prefer Part 1, and I think Part 1 is kind of a 4 to me. I would show people Part 1, even though it doesn't make sense to show people Part 2 without Part 1. But I think Part 1 would go over more easily.
You know, I don't know if I 100% agree with that. I think you could show people Part 2, and they would get it.
Yeah.
For the most part.
They'd enjoy it as much as watching Part 1.
I don't know about that, but if you're putting it on a list of important episodes, Part 2 is honestly probably more important than Part 1.
Yeah,
just because it's 7 of 9.
Yeah, yeah. Agreed.
If I was saying if you're going through the list, I would not split them up. I would say you just watch both of them. Yeah.
Yes, I would. Yeah, Scorpion's a kind of have to watch episode if you're going through Voyager, but. Quality-wise, as a standalone thing, I think that this is just slightly a little bit of a worse episode than the first part. I guess the last question is there's some review I was reading online that thought that Seven's introduction was actually a hindrance to the plot in that they had to work in this new main character that you have. This is probably, I don't remember specifically what they were talking about, but it's probably the thing that we were talking about. It's just that Seven is like a little bit of a distraction, really, like having that character. So I guess we both kind of agreed with that. I while I was watching it, I never felt like, I can see the machinery spinning of trying to get this character in. It felt okay enough that it was working, but I think maybe it's just it detracts enough to notice or think about it after it's over.
If I was watching this not knowing anything about 7 of 9, I would be surprised that she comes back. Like I don't think that it's so distracting that it is obvious what they're doing. I think it's I feel like a lot of the Borg episodes really kind of focus on a single Borg.
Yeah.
Because, then they can talk to him and shit. So it doesn't feel that out of place to do that. So while it's maybe distracting just for personal preferences, I don't necessarily think that it feels like they're shoehorning a new character in.
Yeah. Agreed. It's not unusual for the franchise to treat individualized Borg like this. So that's it. Thanks everybody for listening. We're done with Scorpion Part 2. We're marching into Voyager Season 4. Next up is The Gift, and we say goodbye to Kes. So, we hardly knew ye. Thanks everybody for listening. We hope you enjoyed the content. We'll see you next week with The Gift. Bye.